experiencing inner silence. If we do not know how to be silent, it becomes very difficult to make our actions creative and meaningful. If we don't know how to experience inner silence, it's so easy to become the puppets of routine. And in time, this routine makes our life arid, dry, even empty, mechanical. It is silence that gives oxygen to the mind. And we take breaks during the day for many things, coffee, tea, speaking, but a very useful and beneficial break is to take a break for silence. A silence break means being able to step back and seeing things in a fresh way. I step back from the action and the responsibilities around me for a few moments. When I step back, I become still and I begin to observe. When I become an observer, then I'm able to see a clearer picture. I'm able to have perspective. Like the caterpillar only sees what is in front of its nose. Plodding along, it's eating, it's heavy. It doesn't see around itself, just what is in front of itself. But a bird, once it takes off from the ground, and as it flies higher and higher and higher, it's able to get a fuller picture. And a fuller picture is necessary if it needs to know where it has to find its food, where it has to find a new home, where it has to find water. And in the same way, if I'm able to step into silence, be still, become an observer, then I am able to get a true picture. That is, I'm able to find clarity. And when there is clarity, there will also be peace. When the mind is peaceful, when the mind is clear, then I'm able to step back into action and make the right decisions and not waste time running round in the same circles again and again, meeting the same problems again and again, facing the same difficulties again and again, and wondering where is the solution. Silence enables me to find the solutions that are appropriate to every moment of my life. This is not a difficult thing to do. Simply I need the attention to give this oxygen to my mind. Where there's oxygen, there's always life. Life is maintained. So as I value silence, I will use my time, my energy, and my consciousness in a more economical and more accurate way.
Greetings of peace, everyone, and welcome back to part 3 of the Ancient Wisdom for Modern Times. Well, of course, as we said, each part is really quite independent, so there's no problem that you haven't joined part 1 and 2. So, but welcome back to all those who have been joining previously, and welcome for those for the first time. My name is May, and I'm happy to host today's program. And we have Sister Maureen Chen with us. And today she will be speaking on emotional independence. So before I introduce her, please know that today we have Mandarin as well as Korean translation. And you are welcome to post your questions in the chat box at any time. We will pick it up towards the end when it's the question and answer session with her. So please allow me to introduce Maureen. Sister Maureen has been living in Asia for 32 years back in 1981. And she has helped establish Raja Yoga meditation centers throughout Asia. Then in 2010, over a span of 4 years, she helped organize 50 dialogues throughout India for the Future of Power project, which brings leaders together to explore the use of soft power. From 2014, for 4 years, she was the coordinator of the National Office of the Brahma Kumaris in Australia, in Sydney. And currently, she's the coordinator of Yarra Valley Living Centre near Melbourne, Australia. Maureen has facilitated nonviolent communication workshops in prisons, companies, schools, and organizations all over the world, and actually also with us on Meditation Cafe, I think 1 to 2 years ago. So, and she is also the author of the book, Mystic at the Edge, a Western Woman Colored by Asia. So welcome back, Maureen. Over to you. Maureen, you are muted.
Sorry about that. So very nice to be with you again. And yeah, the basis of all of these talks is soul consciousness. And so we'll be picking up that thread a little bit throughout this talk. And today we're speaking about emotional independence. When people used to ask me, what is the main thing you've benefited from, that you've achieved in your life since practicing Raj Yoga meditation? And I would generally say emotional independence, which means not being a reaction to other people. I mean, it's still a work in progress, but for the most part, I'm learning to be myself, no matter how the other person behaves, the mood, the atmosphere around. And so this is what we are talking about when we're talking about emotional independence. And there's a saying, I'm happy. What's going on? Not what's going on and how do I feel? This is emotional independence, that I will be who I am, regardless of the environment. And I remember a friend in Hong Kong, she was investment banker, and she only used to go to the gatherings when the market was down. And she used to go in there smiling, kind of upbeat. And people would say to her, what are you smiling about? And she would say, well, my mood doesn't depend on the market, the financial market. So this is emotional independence. And there's a very tricky line I don't know how the translators will go, that says, if I am me because you are you, then I'm not me, and you are probably not you. In other words, not to be just a mirror of another person. If someone's mood's down, my mood's down. So this is where we want to journey away from that emotional dependence. And it's not just emotional dependence, because mostly when we're talking about emotions, it so often is in relationship to other people. And what we would like to move away from is any kind of dependency. Raj Yoga Raja means king. So it's a path of self-sovereignty, that I can be myself. I can master my mind, my emotions, my intellect, so my habits. So this is the path of self-sovereignty, self-mastery. And so we need to move away from dependence. We don't enjoy it. When we're dependent, we feel like a slave. And so moving from dependence, of course, there's some aspects where we need to be dependent, perhaps because of our health. And it's also, we'll get to that. But basically moving from dependence to independence. So independence has its own issues, because often when we try to be independent, we become quite sometimes egoistic or reactionary. We have a problem with authority. There's all kinds of reactions generally when we are attempting to be independent. And in fact, I don't think it's very possible. My brother tried to be a really independent person. He said, I don't like to ask anyone for help, and I don't really want people to ask me. He was like that until he had children, but he definitely needed help at that time. He really enjoyed having people babysit and, all the other things, shared cars for school. So actually, we need to celebrate that we cannot do everything. We are not everything. We don't have all the abilities and talents. We can celebrate that we need other people in our life. And so we move from being dependent to independent, and then to interdependence, which is a healthy give and take. And this is what relationship is. Relationships are for cooperation. Think about that. They're not for dependency. They're not to offload our burdens onto others. They're for cooperation, for that state of being interdependent. But we do have to be careful of even the most tricky, really quite, it's not often easy to detect when we're being codependent. So there's a difference between being interdependent and codependent. Codependent is when we're both dependent on each other, whereas interdependence is when we've achieved a certain amount of independence and two whole people come together and enjoy a reciprocal, cooperative relationship. So you can see where we're going with this emotional independence. And in fact, one of the signs of emotional independence is that we enjoy our own company. Often in the world, if people are alone, people might think that they're depressed, that they don't have any friends. It's not been very popular to spend time alone. There was a lady I knew, and I used to suggest to her, because she had a lot of stress in her life, and I suggested that she just go down by, the harbor. This was in Hong Kong, and just sit by the harbor at lunchtime. She said, if I sat on my own, people would wonder what was wrong with me. So we have to be even beyond the opinions of others in this way, because our actions can be judged, and we can start to just behave in ways that other people want us to be, even if they're not related to us, where we become afraid of what people think of us. So being alone, enjoying solitude, is a wonderful sign of being emotionally independent, but equally enjoying company. So in fact, this is where we are reaching this state of equanimity, where we are happy, whether we're in a gathering or alone. We're happy if, we are drawing on our own resources and needing to be independent because they're the circumstances, and equally happy when someone comes along and has a skill that they offer and we can take their help. Because if we're able to be to reach that stage of equanimity, it means to be the same in all situations. This is a part of that independence, and a very healthy state. It means eventually to be able to be the same in heat or cold, in praise or defamation. So reaching this equilibrium. But so often we actually are attached to our emotions, our dependencies. We kind of feel comfortable because they're known. And I realized at one point, because I'd been practicing this meditation for some time, maybe a year or so, and I was feeling quite stable. And I asked myself, do I like being like this? I quite like being emotional. I quite like having, excited feelings. Of course, I don't enjoy the low feelings, but I enjoy the up. But then what I started to check inside myself is why I'm feeling this steadiness, this equilibrium. And it was because I was becoming more emotionally independent. But I wasn't sure that I really liked being so calm and steady and to give up all that emotion. So I was just observing myself over some time, and I thought, I'm finding that I can be happy for a much longer period of time without those ups and downs, and it feels good. So I decided for myself that I want to continue this practice of being steady, calm, even. And I knew a friend, and she was quite artistic, and she would come to me when she had, emotional kind of upheavals or depression. And I saw that she was really like a person that enjoyed emotions. So I suggested to her, well, I think you can choose to be more emotionally balanced if you want to. But what I saw is that she chose not to. She enjoyed these emotions because, people get used to it. So then I said to her, well, I'm afraid that if you're down, I'm not sure that I really have time for you because it's your choice to be emotionally up and down. So I think it's only fair that you sit with your up and down because I choose not to be like that. And I think you have a choice as well. So it made me so clear that it's actually a choice. It's a choice to be even. And when we're in relationship, of course, another very big thing that causes emotional upheaval, and probably one of the core reasons for it, is attachment. Because we worry about the other person, we feel pain if they suffer, we, need them to give us recognition, to give us company. We become dependent when we have that attachment. So what we can choose rather than attachment is love. And often people think that love and attachment are the same thing. Someone pointed out that love actually gives freedom. Attachment controls. When we are attached to someone, we become controlling. When we love someone, we are allowing. So which relationship do you think would be healthier and more sustainable and more enjoyable from both sides? I would say it's the detachment. So love is actually detachment and not attachment. And we often think that detachment is aloof and uncaring, but actually it's just allowing. When I'm detached from you, you can be how you are and I'll be how I am. So if I've chosen to be loving, I'll be loving, whatever you are. So this is, again, a state of emotional independence. And really in relationship, it's almost like love is the currency. It's like in the world, you need money. You can't do anything without money. You need to get the bus, you need to eat, you need electricity. So in relationship, love is the currency. So we need to go deeply into understanding what is love, because often we mix up love with dependence and attachment. And for me, the definition that I found to be most useful in my life is from Scott Peck. And Scott Peck says, love is to extend myself. In other words, to grow myself for my own or another's spiritual growth, to extend myself for my own or another's spiritual growth. So often when we think we are loving, we're not really growing. We're just choosing a few select people that we can manage, that we can get along with, and we keep a very small circle so that we don't have to grow. Actually, love is to include people that are maybe not very easy for you. And especially if we think about choosing people who could do with a little company, who could benefit from someone reaching out. Maybe they don't have a happy personality. Maybe they don't have an easy personality. But let me reach out and grow myself spiritually, grow my love by being inclusive. When we only have a few people in our life, we are generally quite exclusive. And exclusivity is not love. And there was a situation of a little boy that I knew in Hong Kong, wonderful young boy. He was maybe about 10 years old. And he befriended one of the children at school who was being bullied. That's a very risky thing to do, because if someone is being bullied and you become friends with them, you'll probably get bullied too. But he did this, and he asked his mother, can I bring this boy home from school? And his mother kind of knew what was going on. And she said, oh, do you like him? And he said, I think he needs to come to our home. So he didn't say like or dislike. He just said he was behaving in a way that he was growing himself in love for his growth and for the other child's growth. And that's a very courageous thing to do as a 10-year-old, and I think a great example to all of us in the way we relate and how we grow our love. We also in relationship need to be responsible, but often we tend to become controlling when we are responsible. And this becomes a tension in relationships. It doesn't work if I control others. Responsibility, you can see in English, I don't know about Mandarin or Korean, but it's response ability, the ability to respond. So in any situation, rather than control, exercise my ability to respond appropriately. For example, if you try to fly a kite, you can't make the kite fly by controlling the string in the sense of trying to hold it tight. The way to let the kite fly is to let it go. So when we're in relationship with others, we need to see when to hold on, when to let go. So it's not control in the sense of a tightening. And often we think responsibility, we need to tighten, but often it's the opposite. We need to let go. And so, we really do need to think deeply about all these things, because often the way we are brought up and the way we understand is a little bit rigid and not flexible. And another thing that's very important in our relationships, to keep our relationships emotionally independent, is boundaries. So we need to know where I end and you start. And I need to give you space to be yourself. And I have a right to space to be myself. So it's often very difficult to set boundaries. But if we think, about it, if we don't set the boundary, what will happen in this relationship? Will it improve? Most of the time it gets worse. So setting a boundary is so that I can continue in the relationship. Otherwise, I will withdraw and react and all of these things. So to be emotionally independent is to set healthy boundaries with others. And another, word or a training that's been around for many years is what's called emotional intelligence. And here I want to go into something a little bit deeper, and that is the difference between emotions and feelings. And if you've read any of Mike George's books, a very good writer, Many of his books are available through the Brahma Kumaris. So Mike George said that emotions cloud our feelings. And I'd heard him say that there's a difference between emotions and feelings, but I thought it was a bit of a play on words. But when he said emotions cloud feelings, I felt, I need to pay attention to this. And so I started to observe myself, and I saw that, and what he says is that emotions always come from ego, and they are always a reaction. So they come from ego, they're a reaction, and they're always based on the past. Whereas feelings don't come from ego, they come from a deeper sense of what's going on for me. They're very, very important. I need to listen to my feelings. Feelings of anger are not bad. It's the way we use anger that can be hurtful, even dangerous. But feelings of anger are an indication of something like a justice, something where my boundaries have been crossed. And so, there could be this anger that arises, which is not a bad thing. But then managing that, using feelings, like feeling, where is this anger? Am I feeling it in my head, in my stomach, in my chest? And identifying the feelings. As May mentioned, I've been quite, interested in nonviolent communication, and it's talked about as a language of emotions, a language of feelings and needs. It's about literacy around being able to have a broader range of understanding of feelings and needs, so that I can really be in touch with myself, and I'm able to sense what another person is feeling and needing when I become more literate. So when we are able to get in touch with our feelings, we can usually manage our feelings. And feelings means I feel them. Emotions are usually in the head. They're up here, they're in the head, and they're full of judgments and blame and reaction. Feelings, on the other hand, are just what I'm feeling. It's physical. I can feel it. And so then what I need to do is see why I'm feeling this. What am I needing? And this is where I need to then communicate either with myself or with the other person and see how those needs can be met. So it's very interesting to start seeing the difference between emotions and feelings. And I realized that I can't control emotions. They're not something I can control. Sometimes they're hormonal. Sometimes they're always a reaction. And they're also sometimes just from an atmosphere, so they're not deep. They're not a part of me. So if I can take my emotions into my feelings, get in touch with what I'm really feeling on a physical level, and start thinking of what I need, then I can start managing my emotions, bringing them into feelings. It's such a great journey being able to do this. And what is also said is there's only two prime states. In fact, they usually say emotions, but I'm careful to even use that word. But there's two prime states, fear and love. And whatever we've been talking about, you can see that all the emotions are based on fear. They're a reaction. They're, getting out of control. They're, not being able to to hold on to myself. Fear is like that. Whereas love can get me in touch with what's going on. So this is also a choice that I can choose to live from love and not from fear. Because all of these topics could take an hour to go deeply into. And there's not all that time today, but there's a lot of things out there that you can read, but just start thinking about these key things. So then the other thing that we can think about when we do have some feelings that are alive, that are, coming up, whether they're my feelings or I'm dealing with someone else's feelings, what I need to do to be able to manage these is to have a state of empathy. Empathy is when I can really be present with myself or with another. So empathy is actually very difficult. It's very difficult to be present without judging, without trying to fix the other person, but just being there. It's very different to apathy, where I just don't care. It's very different to sympathy, where I get involved with the other person and start to feel the sorrow, or, feel a lot but don't do anything. Empathy, just by being present and a little bit detached. So you give the person, your distance so that the person can process their own feelings, not trying to fix them, not judging them, but just being present and listening so that they can bring things up and see what they think. And I don't know about you, but the best friends I have are good at empathy because they don't try to change me or fix me. They are just present with me and let myself be a friend to myself in this way as well. Often we're very judgmental, even about ourselves. So I want to just get you to reflect, just in silence. If you've got a pen and paper, you can write it down, but just ask yourself the question, why do we so easily join in, like get involved with the emotions of others and add to their emotional state? Like if somebody's gossiping, we'll add to it. It only makes it worse. If someone's worrying, we sit and worry with them. Why do I do that? So just ask yourself that question. Just reflect for a minute. Then I want you to think of a time when you became upset just listening to the emotional story of another. You became upset listening to their emotional story. Could have made you angry, could have made you sad. And now create the scene in your mind that this person has shared with you. Bring to your mind that scene. But this time remain calm and unmoved, yet fully attentive and available. So just a little detached from the story, but caring, attentive, available, but not caught up in the story. So this is a little exercise that you can practice in your life going forward, listening without reacting. You know, sometimes when we do that, people feel we don't care, but that's where empathy is a presence. So you're attentive, you're listening, you're caring, but you're not getting involved. You're being present so that the other person can fully express themselves. They might be angry, they might be crying, and just let them release all of that emotion. And when they release that emotion, you'll know when they're empty because they'll start to relax, and you will too. But you'll just feel that, they've had a chance to express. It's generally the only thing another person needs, just for you to listen with full presence. Because each person has a deep wisdom, and no one knows that person as they do themselves. So when they're able to really listen to themselves, express themselves, and you give them that space, they hear themselves, they hear their feelings, they hear their needs. And that's what's really important. And of course, we can do this with ourselves. So if we are having a reaction to something, write a letter. Put all your anger down in the letter. You know, put all your feelings. Put all that you want to put down in the letter. But of course, never give that letter to the other person. It's just for you to empty all of that and keep writing until you start to get some clarity and have the aim to look at what I'm feeling and needing from this situation. And it's a wonderful release, and we are able to find direction, because often when we're in a state of reaction, when we're emotional, we can't see any direction. And often if we do, it's very hurtful, it's judgmental, it's about blaming the other person and what you're going to do to them and what they have to do to change. But this kind of coming from emotion to feeling, identifying the feelings, identifying the needs, will bring us into a state where we get some clarity. And then we could possibly, find a way to talk to the other person. But, this nonviolent communication, there's a lot of material online about it. If you just Google nonviolent communication, you'll find Marshall Rosenberg and find a lot of good tools to help you with moving from the emotions to the feelings and the needs, and then know how to make a request rather than a demand of the other person. So I've shared a lot, and I can see a few things coming through on that chat. So let's give a good amount of time to question answers. So please put any questions you might have up on the chat box, and May will share them with me.
Thanks, Maureen. We do have one question at the moment. Vincent is asking whether you are talking about spiritual love. Often in the mundane world, love means emotional clinging and refusing to let go. And to them, they say it is love, and therefore throw over a protective blanket over the people they love. This clinging could cause so much arguments, quarrels, and emotional trauma. How would you advise that person involved?
Yeah, so I think this is going back to that aspect of being detached and not attached, because all that you're describing is the behavior when we are attached. When we're detached, we give that space, we give that respect to the other person to grow in their own way. Of course, sometimes it's scary. You know, we want to control them so that we feel responsible. We feel we have to make sure they don't get hurt. People get hurt. People make mistakes. We all did. I'm sure you did. I'm sure I have. I'm very sure I have. So that's growth. And we can't grow without that. So it's so important to be able to be detached and give that space to others. And I was interested in people who have had a long and healthy relationship. And the two couples, I've only found two, you might know others, but I've only really found two couples that have had a long, healthy relationship. And both of them said, in their own words, they gave space to the other person. So they were interdependent. They didn't share all the same hobbies or interests, so they gave each other space. You know, and sometimes we don't like it if someone wants to do something without me, but I need to give that space. And I know at school, I had groups of friends. I didn't generally have one or two good friends. I had 3 or 4 groups of friends, because some friends would do some things I enjoyed and some things I didn't enjoy. And others would do things I enjoyed and some things I didn't enjoy. So I had a few groups of friends. And they say that even about marriage, you know, that often people think when they get married that they'll get everything they want in one person. Impossible. So we need to allow our partners to have friends so that they can fulfill the needs they have, the interests they have, the hobbies they have, so that they can live their life.
Thanks, Maureen. Next question from Sue. What is the best way to move from emotions to feelings, particularly when the emotions come up very strongly and we are reacting? So we're in the heat of emotions. How do we move from emotions to feelings?
Yeah, I think one of the main ways is to get in touch with your body, because usually you find that emotions are in your head. And that's not going to go anywhere. That just goes round and round. You know, you can't do anything from the head. You can only move from your heart. So when feelings come into the body, then your heart can connect with them. But your heart can't connect with your head when it's being emotional. Very interesting. These are things to practice. But if it's immediately, you know, like maybe you're in a shop and somebody suddenly got angry with you and you're feeling like reacting to them. What I learned when I first started Raj Yoga was that by nature, and this is where we come to the soul consciousness, by nature, everyone is a soul, and a soul is, in fact, a being of peace, love, kindness, inner power. So if I keep the vision of that person as a soul, I know that that person wants peace as much as I do. And what I used to practice when I was working, when I did the Raj Yoga course when I was working in the public service. So I was in an office, and often people used to shout at me, as they do when they go to government offices. And people used to shout at me. And before learning Raj Yoga, I would react. And after learning Raj Yoga, I used to just say to them, what do you need me to do? And they'd keep shouting because they don't expect that. And I'd say, what do you need me to do? They keep shouting. And usually by the third time, they'd calm down and start talking to me. And when they talk to me, then I can help them. But I compare that to when somebody has a cough. You know, if someone was coughing, I wouldn't blow smoke in their face. It would make them very uncomfortable. So when someone's shouting, if I shout back, it's like blowing smoke in their face. It's going to make them shout more. It's going to distress them. So I just want them to come back to their essence. And so when I remember that, it really is very easy. And I have to keep reminding myself of that. And I have to keep reminding myself to try and understand what the person feels and needs. And so this goes back to that nonviolent communication. In a way, I was doing it. I was trying to listen to what they need and asking them, what do you need? What do you need? You know, and if you can connect with their need, that's actually what they want. It's just that they're in an emotional state and they're not in touch with their feelings. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. It's a good question to ask. What do you need?
Mm.
But Maureen, this is my own question. When you sit moving from emotions back to feelings, and you were saying about to the body,
Yeah.
I didn't quite understand.
Yeah. So emotions are usually spinning around in the head,
Yeah.
because when we react, usually it's all thinking, blaming, judging very fast.
Yeah.
When I can feel in my body what I'm feeling, I've already slowed myself down because I'm going inwards, and I start to try and feel in my body where I feel that, in my stomach, in my chest. And, you know, if I can breathe into it, because it's very dangerous to get into that state and your body's being affected. It's dangerous, actually. But let me just get in touch with it in my body, and just slowing it down to that level helps me to see what my feeling is. And then I can start seeing what I need. Yeah, very good practice.
It's a bit like being present, like rather than off somewhere in the head.
Yeah, out somewhere, going back to the past. Like I said, emotions are in the past or in the future. They're never in the present.
Okay. So, Alana, I think you've got your reply on the name of the author for Nonviolent Communication, and that's Marshall Rosenberg.
Yes.
Yeah.
Marshall Rosenberg.
Okay. Yeah.
But if you Google nonviolent communication, he comes up everywhere. So pretty easy.
And then there's a question. I did believe I have managed to control my emotions. However, I keep failing recently, which led to causing much sorrow to the other person. I keep reminding not to repeat, yet every time I fall.
Yeah. So, you know, we say after Monday always comes Tuesday, not Sunday. So don't worry, because you're learning about yourself. When we fall, we have to go back to what we know. If you say you used to be able to manage your emotions, it means you had some wisdom, and probably you need to revise that or even go deeper into that. Maybe the things you're having to deal with now are more, but the fact that you could manage your emotions means that you do have some wisdom there. But like I said, that vision of soul consciousness, you know, it's so easy to forget that and react to a person. But this is not a person. This is a soul inside a body playing a part, trying to manage their life. Life is very challenging. So they've lost it. They've lost it. So let me just hold that vision. And especially if I too can be in the awareness that I am a soul speaking to a soul. I'm a being of peace. This is a being of peace. If I'm able to do that, it really helps.
Thanks, Maureen. And what about gloomy and loneliness that is long-lasting? How to embrace the dark? I don't believe in spiritual bypass with knowledge and Raj Yoga.
Yeah. You know, so often it's found, might not be your case, but very often, depression, which is, this is a little bit on the depressed side, maybe not clinically depressed, but depression comes from suppressed anger. So I think it's really good to see what's going on inside your thoughts and what, again, the same thing, what feelings and needs are not getting met. What, you know, sometimes we feel, you know, people don't care about us, and, you know, so we have to see what do I want? And then we need to either talk to the person or find a way that we can see whether, test that belief. And another thing, I read a really good book recently. I wrote down the author here, just let me find it. Chris Helder, Helder, Chris Helder, a very good little book called Useful Beliefs. Useful Beliefs. And what he talks about, he said, positive thinking sometimes is just annoying. You know, if you're going through something and people say, be positive, it's like, you know, it can make you feel quite reactive because you think you don't understand. And sometimes situations are bad. Bad things happen to good people. It is a very challenging situation. So what we need to do is find a useful belief around it. Like, for example, you might have had parents that you felt really didn't fulfill what you needed in life. Okay, a useful belief might be, I chose these parents. Now, if I start using that belief, I chose the parents that I had, and you might think, why would I do that? They were awful parents. I chose the parents I had. So if you go with that belief, then you'll follow along the line that says, because I wanted to learn about this and that, and it's enabled me to grow. It's enabled me to understand other people who go through challenges so I can help them, you know, but it's just a useful belief. And I'll share one that I've been practicing this, but I didn't know what to call it. And it's a very good way to see it. And it's easy to use it when you kind of know what it's called, a useful belief. Might not be the truth. Who knows what's the truth? But I once felt pushed out. I felt pushed out. And I had that pain of feeling pushed out. But then I changed it and I thought, I'm not being pushed out. I'm being pushed up. And when I felt pushed up, I felt excited. I felt, wow, something new is going to happen. Something big is going to happen. And it did. Whereas if I'd gone pushed out, probably it would have gone more pushed out, you know, because that state of mind attracts, you know, whatever I'm putting out there. So if I'm feeling pushed out, you know, like if I feel I'm not worthy of being seen, people won't see me. They just don't see me. I was sitting next to a woman and a person was talking to me, but she was sitting right next to me, older than me, not a child. And that person asked me a question about her. And I thought, that's weird. Why doesn't he talk to her? Because I think, and I know her, you know, her mindset at that time, She felt, I'm not worthy. No one wants to talk to me and I have nothing to say. And, you know, so if you sit around with that kind of thinking, it doesn't help. So another one, I was in a conference in Thailand and I was very young, very inexperienced, and it was a United Nations conference and we all had a microphone in front of us on the seat. And I was looking around thinking, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? There's diplomats and professors and, you know, all these people, they're all older than me. But when I started to listen to them, I just thought, oh my gosh, because it was a peace conference and they're all talking, you know, the same old things. So I thought, I've got to say something. I should be speaking here. So it's a useful belief. It's a useful belief. I am the one that's meant to be speaking at this conference because I've dedicated my life to peace. I know what is peace. I experience peace. I'm an authority on peace. I should speak. So I did. And I was going around the conference feeling, you know, oh, what am I doing here? And I don't know anyone. And, you know, I feel really out of place. And I often wear a white sari or something, so, or wear white and people don't know where I'm from. So I was a little, you know, shy in that gathering. And once I spoke, I became a celebrity there. When I went into the dining room, people were saying, oh, sit with us, sit with us. And people were talking to me and it just changed the whole experience because I changed my belief. Or what am I doing here? I'm too young. I'm not meant to be in this gathering. From no, if anyone should be here, it should be me. If anyone should be speaking, it should be me. Not with pride, but with confidence. It was such a good experience.
Lovely. Before I go to the next question, there is a question in Korean, but if I could request someone to translate it, maybe type it in English, and then I'll ask after this the next question. So people speak of emotional maturity. How does this relate to emotional independence and feelings?
Yeah, that's a good question. It relates very well because mature actually means to come of age. So, you know, when we're young, our emotions are generally not very mature because I haven't cultivated, you know, qualities. And when I'm able to know my values, especially, you know, this is a way to cultivate my feelings and understand them, is to identify my core values, because values are surrounded by feelings, and I will use the feelings. I will protect my values with feelings. Like if I have the value, like we spoke before on dignity, if I have the value of giving dignity and staying in my dignity, and I always want to, you know, give that dignity to others, then my emotions, you know, or more my feelings will be connected. So if I'm going to maintain the dignity of another person, if they're saying something that I think, oh, that's rubbish, I might think, oh, that's rubbish. But then I think, how can I think that? I want to give dignity to this person. That is just a way the person's expressing. Let me listen deeper to what they're saying and let me respect what they're saying, accept what they're saying, because that's what they feel. I might not feel it, but if they feel it, that's valid. So let me, you know, give that respect to them. So knowing my core values, very helpful to being in touch with my feelings.
Thank you. And how do we cultivate our feelings through meditation and yoga?
Very good question. you know, I've also got a little bit of an interest in neuroscience and how we rewire our brains by changing our beliefs. You know, those useful beliefs actually rewire our brains, and also by cultivating these virtues. So if I sit in meditation and I go into an understanding of peace and I feel peace, I'm already rewiring my brain. But to feel peace, I often need to believe that I really am a being of peace. So even thinking about it and rewiring my belief about that, it's a belief based on logic and then experience. So the more logic and the more experience, the stronger that neural pathway will be. And when your neural pathways are set, they just flow. You know, you set them and then they just flow. So you don't need to keep working on them once you've set them.
A new habit.
Yeah.
Have you got any recommended books on this topic, the emotional independence, or today's topic?
I think, you know, I mentioned Mike George, you know, because it's so much tied up with ego. I think his books really focus a lot on shining light on, you know, that false identity, that external identity that we attach to. So the immune system of the soul is one of his bestsellers. He's got many. There's another one called 7 Myths of Love. What's it called? One of my favorites.
It's my favorite book.
7 Myths of Love. 7 Myths of Love, Mike George. Very, very good. And also The Road Less Traveled, where I got that quote from. Come on, he's one of my. I'll think about it. But The Road Less Traveled. That one is also very good, because it really goes into what is love and what's not love.
Is it Scott Peck?
Scott Peck, yes, of course. Yeah. Scott Peck.
Thanks, Julie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, you know, mostly his book is about what is not love, just as Mike says. And you can see that these emotions, they do center around love a lot. They've got a lot to do with love, feelings. I mean, I still slip into using emotions when I mean feelings, and because the people in the world do, like even this topic, emotional independence. If I said feelings independence, it would be a little strange, but it's being independent from the emotions, so the reactions. So it's the correct word there. But if you read psychology, they usually intertwine the two. Don't really see a difference. So, yeah, but we can know.
Understanding the difference.
Yeah, really worth it. Helped me a lot, because I used to be very emotional, just emotional. And being able to go to feelings from emotions helps me to manage.
To be less sensitive, like picking up everything around.
Yeah.
Okay, so if there aren't any other questions, I'm sorry I couldn't get to the one written in Korean. So sorry about that. If there isn't, is there any other questions that anyone would like to ask before Maureen, you guide us into meditation? Okay, I think generally we've got lots of questions today, which is really good. Thank you very much.
Yes, go away and study, because, You know, it's and I'm not trying to promote my book, but that's why I wrote it, because I've read quite a few books and I don't read them, I study them so I can share them with others. So, you know, it's really good to, if you do read things, to really study, take notes and practice, not just read. Otherwise, there's not much point in it.
I've just shared the title of your book in the chat group.
Especially the second part. It's in 3 parts. And the second part is all about, you know, about nonviolent communication, boundaries, emotional independence. All these things are in there, what I've kind of learned from others. So I do credit a lot of great thinkers for these things.
Thank you, Maureen. So perhaps with that, let's have some meditation with Maureen. And Maureen will guide us into it.
Okay. So why do I want to be emotionally independent? Because I want to really know who I am. I no longer want to be a reaction to anyone else or be defined by others, to be dictated to by others. I really want to know and experience who I am. I start by understanding myself as a spiritual being, a soul, being of peace and love. The more I know myself to be this, the more I realize that each and every individual I meet is also a spiritual being, a being of peace and love. So let me meet others in this soul consciousness. When I am soul conscious, I experience that everything I need is within myself. Wisdom, inner strength, love. I build faith in myself. Confidence in myself. And as I get to know and accept myself, my respect for myself grows. My love for myself grows. And when I have self-respect, I can be stable. I'm no longer needy. There is no longer a need to prove myself. I'm happy just to be me, content, fulfilled. Light. Love. And the stronger I become in this awareness, the more I can hold this awareness when I interact with others. Just imagine yourself in your family, in your workplace, in this state of self-respect and contentment, and how it brings an easiness and lightness in your actions, your interactions, and in the atmosphere. Let me maintain this awareness of Om Shanti, a being of peace. Om Shanti.
Thank you, Sister Maureen, for joining us for 3 programs, 3 months in a row, and really to the tech team and the translations which are on today as well, and everyone for joining us on this Saturday. I thought I will just share what's coming up. Let's see if I can put that up. Okay, so starting from 12 August, we will have another series of 3 programs, Transforming My Life Through Spiritual Awakening with Sona Bari from Abu Dhabi. Some of you, if you have joined, she's done a program with us end of last year, Healing Heart and Soul. And so she'll be joining us again. Part 1, the wake-up call. Part 2, the signs of happiness. And then finally, flying free. And the programs will be 2 weeks apart this time. We will send out details closer to the date. And before we go, I'd like to invite everyone to put on the gallery view, and you're welcome to please turn on your video and unmute yourself to say hi, or bye to Sister Maureen.
Yeah.
Be nice to see all of you.
Thank you, Maureen.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Sister Maureen.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Maureen. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
감사합니다.
감사합니다.
옴 샨티.